This is the Horse Radio Network.
This is episode 934 of Horse Tip Daily. A different horse tip, a different equine topic, a different equestrian expert every day. Horse Tip Daily brings the world of equine knowledge to you, one day at a time. Greetings, horse people. Coach Jen here, and thanks for tuning in to Horse Tip Daily. Today's tip is an excerpt from the driving radio show where co-host Dr. Wendy Ying explains pneumoacupuncture to her co-host Glenn the Geek. And we'll get to our tip right after this important message from Kentucky Performance Products.
This Nutrition Minute is brought to you by Kentucky Performance Products, the company that simplifies your search for research-proven nutritional supplements at kppusa.com.
The horse that matters to you matters to Kentucky Performance Products. Electrolytes. Who needs them? Your horse, that's who. Electrolytes perform critical functions within your horse's body. They help regulate nerve and muscle functions by carrying electrical impulses between cells. In addition, electrolytes assist the body in maintaining a healthy fluid balance by controlling your horse's desire to drink. When your horse loses significant amounts of electrolytes and fluids, problems such as dehydration, muscle cramping, fatigue, tying up, and colic may occur. Even in mild forms, these conditions can have a negative impact on your horse's ability to perform and recover after exercise. Top riders and veterinarians turn to Summer Games Electrolyte to keep their horse healthy in hot weather, and you can too. Summer Games replenishes the electrolytes and trace minerals lost when your horse sweats, and it stimulates the thirst response so your horse continues to drink and stay properly hydrated. So when the going gets hot, trust Summer Games Electrolyte from Kentucky Performance Products to protect your horse.
This Nutritional Minute has been brought to you by Kentucky Performance Products. You can find all of their terrific products at kppusa.com. Well, Dr. Ying, what are we talking about today?
Today we're talking about pneumoacupuncture.
Pneumoacupuncture.
Pneumoacupuncture. Do you know where that term comes from?
No.
Well, you know what acupuncture is,
Well,
right?
I know what pneumonia is. Is that related?
It's related to that because pneumo means air.
Really?
Yep. So
I never knew that.
like pneumatic tires. They're air-filled tires.
Oh, I never put two and two together. I just never thought about it.
Well, Glenn, you should learn your Latin. That's why they force you to learn Latin when you're in
I went
high
to
school.
school with Mennonites and Amish. We didn't do much Latin.
You didn't have to know Latin. Well, let me tell you, when I got to med school, learning Latin was or vet school was so helpful
I bet.
to know Latin. But in Chinese medicine, it has not helped me at all. I wish my parents had taught me Chinese. So pneumo is air. And in Chinese medicine, sometimes we have herbs that are just like that. They're like kill wind, tonify blood. But it's like this long Chinese name. And if I only knew it, it's like so easy. So pneumoacupuncture is the action of injecting air under the skin when you have an atrophy condition. So it's only used in cases where the muscle has atrophied away. So it's like a lot of times I've used it in Sweeney, and that's a common injury of a driving horse, where the nerve that innervates their shoulder gets squished by the collar, and then the muscles can't fire properly. So the muscle atrophies, and then you have one shoulder smaller than the other shoulder. Have you ever seen that?
Yes, I have. I don't know if I've seen the shoulders, but I've certainly seen atrophy on one side of a horse as opposed to another.
Yeah, and you would see that a lot actually in Amish country because the horses have to keep working, and sometimes their collar doesn't fit. And then when they get more atrophied, the collar fits less and less and less. So it's kind of a vicious cycle. Another time you
Is
can
it
have
painful, or it's just not painful necessarily? Just
it can be painful. It depends on where where the nerve is at what stage, because pain is actually the first sensation to come back and the last sensation to leave, unfortunately.
Got it.
So when something goes numb, the last thing to leave you is pain sensation. So it all depends on what stage they're at. Another time you might see atrophy is in the gluteal muscles. Like if you look at the back of the horse, looking at his tail and his two butt cheeks,
Yep.
one can be really angled and the other can be really round. That's one of the most, that's part of my exam. Every time I examine a horse, I'm always looking at the atrophy, if they have any atrophy on their glutes or on their shoulders, because a lot of times they can get that from having pinched nerves in their lumbar or their sacral area.
Okay.
So that's a chiropractic adjustment. The case that I'm working on right now is a super interesting case, and this is why I wanted to talk about pneumoacupuncture. This little horse had some kind of trauma to his face. And so his masseter muscle on one side is completely atrophied. It's like gone. So one side of his face is totally sunken in, looks like as skinny as your horse looked when you bought it, and the other side is like normal quarter horse pony face. And
Ooh.
I know, I know, and the times that I've seen that in the past, it happened because the horse was anesthetized to lay down to be castrated or something, and the buckle on the halter, if you don't take the buckle off when they're anesthetized, it like pushes on the nerve that innervates that muscle, and then it damages that nerve, and then they get atrophy. It also could happen, if they got a kick, or sometimes that's it could happen from having EPM or a neurologic disease. In this case, we started treating it, and this is a chronic case. This was just a random horse at the barn that I was working at, and I said, "Oh, let me do pneumoacupuncture on that pony." So, what I do is there's the skin lays over the muscle that's atrophied, right? And they get these little skin tags there. So you have to kind of pull the skin up a little bit. Are you getting freaked out now, Glenn?
I'm starting.
But it's loose there. So you pull it up, and then I take a big syringe and I fill it with air and a big needle, and I inject the needle into the subcutaneous space, and then I push air in there.
Like a balloon.
Like a balloon. And I fill it up with air, and the air underneath there, it pulls the skin away and also causes some contraction of the underlying muscle. And you can do that on the shoulder. I have never done it on their gluteals. I mean,
now, what's it do though?
Well, you're stimulating all the little tiny, all the little tiny muscles, all the little tiny nerves that attach to your skin and that go through the muscle, right? It's kind of like myofascial release, because you're pulling all those little tags away, but also you're stimulating the underlying muscle itself. So after I did the first treatment, while I was doing it, even the whole side of that pony's face just started to twitch. And before, he was very droopy and kind of chewed funny.
Okay.
So it kind of wakes up the nerves. You have to stimulate the nerves to start working again. And so then I followed that with some electroacupuncture and some laser, of course. And Dr. Kyle adjusted him, because the nerves that innervate the head are actually cranial nerves, right? So that's why they have in sci-fi things, they cut off somebody's head and they keep it in a jar where they can still talk, because you haven't separated those muscles from the spinal cord.
So my question would be, how is it? Logic tells me this would be just temporary, and in 2-3 days we're back to where we were before.
Oh yeah, it deflates after that.
Okay.
But the thing is that before, if you don't do the pneumoacupuncture, there's no way to really stimulate that underlying tissue.
But is this something you have to do once a week, once a month? Is it something you have to do on a very regular basis, or does it stimulate it enough that it starts to regenerate? What happens?
Yeah, for acute injuries, I like to go like once a week for like 3 to 5 times.
Okay.
And that's with anything, not just pneumoacupuncture, but
that's
like,
enough to get it restarted?
Yeah, and they because you have to keep stimulating it. Now, I'm not saying that if that nerve is completely like damaged all the way through, and there's no innervation to that muscle, I can't regenerate nerves. But if there's just stagnation in there, if there's just scar tissue or something compressing the nerve, um, then if we can get rid of whatever's pinching that nerve, like when you squeeze a hose, you stop the water flow. If you can undo the kink, then you can regenerate that.
Ah, okay.
Similar to cupping in people. Have you ever heard of cupping?
No.
But we can't do cupping in animals. Cupping is a Chinese medicine technique where you have these little glass cups and
I've seen that.
yeah,
Yes, I have seen
and
that.
you put the
yes.
you put flame in there, and then it makes the inside air hot.
And
While the air's still
sucks
hot,
your skin.
yeah, they put it on your skin and it sucks all the toxins out. I actually get cupping quite a bit because I have my back's been hurting me a lot, and also remember I had that cough for so long. So the cupping, I had a lot of cupping like 1 week apart, and it made a huge difference. But it makes your muscles underneath your skin hurt a little bit because it's tugging on there. It's that constant tugging.
Well, it's like giving them a little workout, actually.
Yeah. So many times when we do acupuncture and chiropractic treatments, we are trying to release endorphins, and we're trying to get the nervous system to kind of reset itself, right?
Mm-hmm.
But this cupping or this pneumoacupuncture is a very local treatment, right? Because here I have this like something's not working here. So I need to focus all my energy here. And that's just like a gentle tug of the skin. And I know like when you've gone for massage, and they do that tugging of your skin, that's a twee knot technique that I send home to clients. But it really activates that area. And then to reset his nervous system, that's why we followed it with chiropractic care, because that pony he was really locked up in where his head attaches to his first cervical vertebrae.
Okay.
So that's where all those cranial nerves are running around through there. And if you don't get rid of what's causing this nerve blockage, you're never going to fix that. So it took we threw a whole everything we had at it, right? And in 2 treatments, the pony's face has gotten much better, and it is still twitching.
Interesting.
So I don't know if the continually twitching is a good or a bad thing. That might be what I'm going to have to fix after I fix the cheek.
Now, I guess you have to be careful because obviously you have to be careful where you put the air. That's important.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, this is not something that you should attempt at home.
No, because,
you need to be a trained acupuncturist to do this. But basically, how you pull up the skin and you do a subcutaneous injection. So you have to make sure that you're not in any vessels. So
I was going to say, you put
back.
air in the blood vessel, that's it.
Yeah, you don't want to be putting like 60 cc's of air into the blood vessels.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. That's where the dangerous part comes in.
Yeah, don't do that.
No, not good. Interesting. I'd never heard of this before.
It's an ancient technique. It was described 2,000 years ago in the Yellow Emperor's Treatise on Acupuncture.
Huh. Very interesting.
Yeah. And that's another interesting thing, too, is that these techniques were developed so long ago, right? So they didn't have MRI and X-ray and blah, blah, blah. It was like, okay, here's my best guess, and this is what I'm going to do. So
it was trial and error to get it right.
It's trial and error.
Yeah.
And can you imagine the first person that did that? His friends must have been like, what are you doing? That's never going to work.
Well, that is very, very interesting.
Yep.
And what's it called again?
Pneumoacupuncture.
So that's something you would ask your acupuncturist if they do, right?
Yeah, and in most cases, we use that only on horses because, dog and cat skin is very loose anyway, so it's a technique mostly done for horses. And now we have other things that we can add to that, like the electroacupuncture, chiropractic. But it's a great starting point if you have atrophy case.
Very good. And where can people find out all of your stuff?
At drwendyying.com.
And if they live in southern Florida, in the Sarasota area, they can call you for some pneumoacupuncture?
That's right. And also, we've been posting the pictures of this pony on Facebook. So if you go to my Facebook site, the 5 Elements for Animals Facebook, you'll be able to see pictures of little Tuffy.
Thank you, Wendy. Appreciate that. And, you can actually go back and find all of Wendy's traditional Chinese medicine updates by going to horsetipdaily.com and just searching under Dr. Wendy Ying. And all of them will be there right in a row. So if you want to catch up on any of the past ones, that's probably the easiest way to do that.
Well, there you go. You can listen to Glenn and Wendy every week on the Driving Radio Show by going to drivingradioshow.com, or you can download the app. Yes, that's right. Horse Radio Network has an app for iPhone and Android. Just go to your app store and search Horse Radio Network. This podcast has been made possible through the generous support of Kentucky Performance Products and listeners like you. Listeners like me, you ask? Well, yes. Folks like you who enjoy the great podcasts on Horse Radio Network can support your favorite programs by supporting our sponsors like Kentucky Performance Products and also by becoming an official auditor. For as little as $1 a month, you'll be helping to support the Horse Radio Network programs that as an official auditor, and you will be eligible for some cool auditors-only perks. Learn how by going to horsetipdaily.com and look for the Become an Auditor banner on the center of the page. The Horse Radio Network and the Horse Radio Network hosts are not responsible for statements of guests or their opinions. Use your own judgment when listening to the tips provided by the experts on Horse Tip Daily.